Okay, so it looks like we are broadcasting live once again. I am Patrick Qualey, your friend of the mortgage business and host here at the Wicked Awesome Report, joined by my co-host Declan O'Toole from Select Real Estate. Good morning, Declan.
Morning, Patrick. How are you this morning?
Things are well. Things are well. And yourself?
Good. Kids are back I won't say at school, but they're participating in school for the first time in months, 6 months. So it feels
Same,
good.
yeah, same here. Not physically attending, but attending classes. So we'll see how that goes.
So if I get interrupted, as I say, pardon the interruption, I'm sure it'll be an issue with another Zoom call in another room. But
Exactly, yeah. Those technical difficulties seem to creep up a little bit more when it's younger faces in front of the camera there. So this morning we're going to talk about some of the different types of properties that are out there, and just sort of the basic three options: a single family, a condo, or a multifamily. And if you're in the market to purchase a home and you're looking at all of those different options, may not be sure what is the correct fit for you based on your lifestyle and your future plans. So it's not an all-inclusive list, but just a conversation about some of the pros and cons and maybe some of the things to think about that maybe you haven't considered when you're looking at different types of property. So we'll run through sort of a brief pro and con list of each one, both from a real estate perspective as well as from a financing perspective, because there are some differences when it comes to financing options, and that very well could be a limiting factor in terms of when you're ready to buy a property, what the financing might look like. So what do you say, Declan? Want to just jump right into it?
Yep, I think just to get started, this is going to be like talking to a 2-year-old. Maybe we just define what each one is.
Sure.
Not strict definitions, but just to break it out so that when we go to each one,
explain it like I'm 5. Isn't that one of the Reddit one of the Reddit pages there? Explain like I'm 5. So let's break it down to the most simple terminology here. Make sure we get everybody
common denominator
to start.
So again, in simple person's terms, a condo is a saleable unit, a property that's sold within a larger structure, and the apartment would be owned you'd own the apartment in a shared building or complex. So you'd own the inside of your walls, but not necessarily the rest of the complex. You got a proportion to the size of your condo usually. Single family home, again, this is repeating the obvious, but usually it's a freestanding residence, 4 outer walls that are not connected to any other residences. And it's a standalone structure on a foundation, and it can be a single story, multiple stories. Usually it has a basement and an attic space as well. Something before I go to multifamily, there's some people that ask, well, a townhouse, is that a single family or a condo? The simple perspective, it usually has a smaller footprint, obviously, than a single family. It's got multiple floors, you got shared exterior walls with neighboring homes in a community. The key there is, Patrick, that it is in a community. But often, which means that it really is more of a condo than a single family. In fact, it is a condo. It's part of a condo complex.
Yeah. So I think the difference there is what the physical makeup, what it looks like, versus what the legal definition of it is. So a condominium is more of a legal classification, a legal definition of the type of ownership of the real estate. So in a condominium, like I said earlier, it's sort of a shared ownership. You own a percentage of a larger entity, as opposed to a single family where it's one standalone entity, if you will.
Right. And then multifamily, I think we'll stick with what we call the residential multifamily. So 4 or less units, given that we're comparing them to condos or single families. But essentially, very often it's a home that's turned into 2 or more units, but certainly it's anywhere from 2 to 4 units. Some people see it as a hybrid between a single family and a condo. If you happen to be living in one of the units, it's kind of condo living. But you don't get the ownership. Units tend to be smaller than obviously a single family, and a little less private as well.
Sure. So we talk about multifamilies. It is often or a lot of times it's a larger single family that has been converted into a multifamily. We just got to be careful on all the legal ramifications, make sure all the permitting, everything was done correctly, that it truly is a multifamily residence, more than one unit. And you're right, it's a lot of people can view that sort of as a hybrid. It's somewhere in between a single family and a condo. So let's run through. Now we have sort of the definition of what each of those are. Let's run through some of the pros and cons of owning each particular type of real estate. So we'll start with a single family. So when I think of a single family, some of the pros that I'm thinking of are privacy. And you've got total control of that single standalone entity. Now, of course, you have to comply with all the zoning ordinances, and you can't build a casino on the back of your property. It has to comply with all the zoning ordinance, but you're not sharing a common wall with a neighbor. You can have people over and have a cookout in your backyard without worrying about what, compared to a condo, what the homeowners association is going to say, or are you even allowed to have a grill on your property and have a cookout? So it's, I think privacy and more control kind of go hand in hand when I'm thinking about what a single family is. What comes to mind for you, Declan, when you take?
Yeah, they're obviously two of the big ones. The other one is extra space. Typically, you got indoor and outdoor space, so you get it's better for families, pets, and children. That's partly the control thing. Then you also usually have more storage because you don't have a developer that's gone in to try and maximize the square footage. So you probably have more closet space. You've got, in most cases, or at least a good proportion of the cases, you got attic space and you got basement space as well. Mm-hmm. So and so it's the other thing, I suppose, a single family home, we'll get into this too, is maintenance. You actually have more maintenance on the outside. The difference between a single family and a condo is, in a single family, you own everything. You own the land, you own all the capital expenses, which is everything from, it could be the roof, the gutters, the landscaping, as well as everything inside, which you typically have control of in a condo as well. So there's extra upkeep there that needs to be taken care of.
Yeah. So the offsetting con to that pro of having total control of the property, the con is, well, you have total control, but you also have to maintain everything that's in your control, which is the exterior of the building, like we talked about, as well as the landscaping. So when it comes to having that control, a lot of people can see that may translate into more expense as well. The maintenance and upkeep of a single family home, again, we're sort of comparing and contrasting here as compared to a condo. The maintenance and upkeep on a single family typically is going to be higher.
The other part of that too is you have other expenses that would be similar expenses, but they're more expensive. So things like homeowners insurance. Now you're personally insuring the roof, the exterior, and it's bigger space, so there's usually more insurance. Real estate taxes tend to be more expensive for a single family home as well. And, you talk about mortgage insurance, which I'm sure you're going to touch on as well. It doesn't, which we'll get into, it doesn't have homeowners fees. But other than that, the actual similar expenses are going to be more for a single family home.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, you've got more privacy, you're in total control. Typically you have more space inside and outside. But the offsetting con to that is can be more expensive in terms of all the maintenance and upkeep. On the financing side of things, one of the pros with the single family home is that as compared with the other types of property, typically a lower down payment. So believe it or not, Declan, there still are loan programs out there that allow for 100% financing. So no down payment. But in most cases, the down payment is going to range, on the lower end, anywhere from 3 to 5%. On other types of property, condos and multifamilies, it's more difficult to put together a transaction with that minimal down payment. So if you're looking at this from a financing perspective and what can you qualify for to purchase real estate, typically a single family is going to come with the lowest out-of-pocket expense as a percentage of the purchase price to be able to get to the closing table.
Very good.
All right, so
Condos.
Moving on. So pros and cons of condos. So again, it's really sort of a compare and contrast type of analysis here. So on condos, typically it's going to be again compared to the single family, less maintenance. So there's less outside work to be done. Typically, that's covered by the condo association, the condo fees. They're maintaining, the landscaping and the snow plowing, the exterior of the building, the roof. Okay. So if you're not interested in all of that outside maintenance work, well, maybe a condo might be an appropriate purchase for you. When we talk about the purchase price, not always, but in most cases, a condo is typically going to come at a lower price tag in terms of what that purchase price is going to be as compared to a single family home. Would you say, as a general rule, you'd say that's probably correct?
It is correct. And what it also does is with a condo, you may get take advantage of the economies of scale of a building. So let's say you're basically going to be pooling your resources with other owners. So you may have amenities too that you can't, the in-ground pool you might not be able to afford at a single family. Maybe there's a fitness center. So they would be cost prohibitive for a single family home, but you're getting access for less money to more amenities.
Exactly. Yeah. So the amenities that come with the condo complex, I wasn't even thinking about that. You're right. The cost to install, an in-ground pool on a single family versus purchasing a condo that has a pool as part of the complex, or the fitness center having a gym on site. There's all those types of amenities, and again, not having to maintain them yourself personally can be a benefit. But the offsetting con with that is somebody has to maintain it, and somebody has to pay for that maintenance, and that somebody's going to be you. Right. So through the condo association dues, the condo fees, the homeowners association dues, some people can view that, I guess, as a con. It's an additional expense that comes with owning a condo.
Yeah, it is, and this is where I think we'll go deeper into it. Then the question is, how many amenities do you want? Because you're going to find, if you're looking, and you need to let your real estate agent know if you happen to be buying a property, what you're looking for. If you don't need a fitness center, you don't need a pool, they are going to cost you more. If it's an elevator building, way more. That's just condo fees automatically go up. I can tell you horror stories with elevators, and that's the inconvenience. Never mind, as well as the actual cost.
So skip the fitness center and skip the elevator and just buy a property on the top floor and use the stairs. Exactly, there you go. You save money and you're getting your fitness in. There you go.
Exactly. If you're like me, leave your keys behind every so often, you get a lot more fitness. So.
Double down on that Stairmaster.
Exactly. But one thing with condos too, I think that in our area, you'll see it too. There are more condos in urban areas too. So what does a condo really get you? If you're starting out, and it depends on what stage you are. All of these are going to depend on what stage you are in the purchase. It gets you closer to the shops, the restaurants, the nightclubs. Maybe not right now, but in another 6 months, 2 years time, when this pandemic's gone, there's a lot of advantages to getting you kind of a single family home within the bounds of Boston proper. Not very affordable, but a condominium, you got a place you can stay for a lot less money.
Yeah, closer to the amenities, and maybe the trade-off there is if you are in a condo in an urban area, close to all the amenities, like I said, grocery stores, restaurants, nightlife, whatever. Well, maybe you don't need a car, so maybe that's Correct. part of the trade-off there. And it's not just so it brings up a good point. It's not just a real estate choice. To a certain degree, it's a lifestyle choice. What kind of a lifestyle do you want to lead? And a condo in an urban area may be a better fit. So I think that goes beyond sort of the line on the paper draw a line down the middle and pros on one side and cons on the other. Lifestyle, I think, maybe sort of outside of the typical pro and con list as you're looking at different properties. But yeah, those homeowners association dues definitely play a part, or should play a part in whether or not you're buying a condo and what type of condo. Because like I said, if you don't need a fitness center, if you don't need a pool, why the hell are you going to buy in a complex that has those amenities? Part of your condo fees is going towards the upkeep and maintenance of those amenities. If you're not going to use them, well, that's probably not the right complex for you.
The other part of that is with a condo association. Again, if you talk, that's going back to the cons with regards to a condo. You're looking at there's two things. The fees, you don't have control over them, right? So you're going to have, if you're sharing the decision making with other parties. The homeowners association typically, they have rules and restrictions, but there's also these fees, the HOA fees that you pay for the common areas. If it's not a very well run property and there's deferred maintenance, etc., you're going to get hit with either assessments, which is where you have to pay a one-time fee, sometimes many times, to cover for a lack of funds to cover costs, or your condo fee goes up. And that affects you on a month-to-month basis, but it also has a major impact. I know this on the sell side, is your condo fees are high. Nobody else wants to move in and take over those expenses.
Right. So whereas a single family, you're in total control of the entire property. With a condo association, you're in a shared control situation, and you can't just sort of abdicate responsibility and let someone else, run it. You, to make sure that your condo fees stay in line and the property is being managed correctly, you should be taking an active role in that homeowners association or
Correct.
board. And that's not for everybody. There are personality conflicts, and some people just don't want to be, involved in that type of group management type of situation. So I think that could be a con. Now, one of the other things that you mentioned there, just in terms of homeowners association and sort of rules and regulations, we touched about it. We touched on it. We talked about the single family. If you want to have a party and have friends over and have a barbecue, have a cookout, well, that may not be possible with the condo association. You're buying into, again, a sort of a shared entity. You're buying a percentage of a larger overall entity, and there are rules and regulations. There are things you can and cannot do. So before buying that condo, you certainly want to check out the bylaws and see really what is possible. Can you have a grill on your balcony or in the shared common areas? Can you have a pet?
Yeah.
Some condo associations don't allow for it. And I've certainly had clients where that was a deal-breaking discovery. They found a complex and a unit that they liked, made an offer, it was accepted. Then going through the condo docs, and lo and behold, client couldn't bring her dog with her, and that was a deal-breaking situation. So one of the cons, I think, I suppose it could be a pro as well, because if you're living in a shared space, you don't want, maybe you're allergic to cats and you don't want your neighbor having a cat. So that would be a pro. But if you're a cat lover and you have cats, it's a con. You don't want to buy that unit. So I think that one can cut both ways. But certainly you want to review the bylaws and know what you can and can't do before you move in.
Right. Bring the horse in instead.
Yep.
Which I've seen somebody get around that with cats and dogs, and they brought a miniature pony into the property.
Yeah, there you go. That would be an interesting situation. I think that's a whole show in and of itself, Declan. So we'll have to come back and visit that one. And of course, one of the other cons I see with a condo is less privacy. You've got more proximity to your neighbors. Typically, you've got one or several, shared walls. Someone living above you or below you or right beside you. Just less privacy as compared to a single-family home.
Right. Absolutely.
So those are some of the pros and cons on condos. Let's move along to multifamilies, which has actually some components of both single and condos. So if you're purchasing a multifamily, yes, you're in total control of the entity of the real estate, um, and you have the ability in most cases to qualify to be able to purchase, a property with a larger price tag, because there are rental units in there. You're going to be receiving rental income. That income can help you qualify for a higher dollar amount of mortgage financing, allowing you to qualify for that multifamily home, which again is typically going to come at a higher price tag. So you can qualify for more dollars. You can buy a larger property, but that may be a pro. It's also a con in some cases, because now you're a landlord. And again, that's not for everybody. And Declan, I know you do some property management work,
Mhm.
and I'm sure we've got more than one, probably more than a dozen shows available on landlord and tenant issues. So I think that, that can certainly be a con.
Yeah, there's a few few ways of looking at it. Of course, as you said, you tend to it lower, you may get a lower cost per unit, right? When you buy your property, if you get a 2 family or 3 family, you move into one unit, it gives you a little bit more leverage. But yeah, if it comes down to the big disadvantage with multifamilies, no surprise, it's the people, right? It's really down to
Yeah,
this world would be simple if it wasn't for all the people in it.
yeah,
But
exactly.
the tenants part of it too is if you're buying a multifamily, again, it kind of goes back to where you can afford the condo in an urban area versus single family further out. The multifamilies too, you tend to, if you get a multifamily, you're typically going to be in a less affluent neighborhood, so you're going to be lower income. The tenants will be a little bit lower income, so versus the high end condo or the condo in the city. So you're going to have, you may have more vacancies, you may have more management headaches with regards to that property. It's down to, again, this is a different conversation, but you just make sure that you screen your tenants very well, because you're basically, now you've got the multifamily, so you got the privacy issue. First off, you're living on the first floor or third floor, regardless, you're now sharing your house with somebody else. Um, and it's the other part of that is you've got that property, it's harder to sell. So I work with investors as well that are buying multifamilies, and some of them buy it to move into a unit themselves as well. But there's a few different things. Most investors want to purchase a property that's vacant, so they get a clean slate and they move in, and that's where it goes. So you may have to vacate your property before, and I know this is a different topic, probably for another day, but you have to go through, there's some costs in terms, you may be forcing a vacation of your property, and now you're paying a mortgage, and then you got to wait until your property sells.
Yeah, so there's basically just there's more logistics to being able to sell that property at some point in the future. You've got more moving parts because you've got multiple units and probably tenants in those units.
And less, you're gonna miss the families that are looking to establish a home for themselves. They're more likely to go for the first two we talked about. Well,
Yep.
actually, less likely a condo. You're probably looking at a single family home versus a multi-family home. So, you do limit your pool of potential business as well on the sales side.
Yep. Um, Now, on the financing end of things, a couple of pieces to point out. We touched on it briefly earlier, but when you're talking about multifamilies, in order to qualify for the traditional conventional financing options, you're limited to 4 units. Once you have 5 units and up, technically, even if it's all residential units, it's a unit apartment building, all residential units. Because that fifth unit is there, it's now considered a commercial property, and you need to get commercial financing. So entirely different ball game, entirely different conversation for another show. But basically, if we're talking about uh, residential properties, multifamilies, we're talking about 4 units or less. Um, Also, on the financing end of things, for most of the loan programs, it actually comes at a higher cost for down payment. Now, there still are some financing options there where you can put less than 20% down, but typically it's going to come at a higher price tag to purchase that home, and whatever percentage of the down payment you're giving, well, if the purchase price is higher, that down payment is higher because the down payment's a percentage of that purchase price. So it's typically going to cost more out of pocket in order to get to the closing table. And similar to a single family where you own the entire entity, and along with that ownership, you're also responsible for all the maintenance. Well, that's times two or times three or times four. So if you're buying a four family, you've got a much larger building that you have to maintain the exterior and the interior of four units at that point. So when you talk about budgeting and planning here, you also have to plan for what that maintenance and upkeep is going to be. Most people just take a look at what's the cost of the mortgage payment and how much is the taxes and how much is the insurance. Okay, great. That's, those are my expenses. Well, really not. You have to put some money aside to be able to deal with the repairs and maintenance and upkeep. And again, on a multifamily, those expenses are going to be larger. So that very well could be a con, especially if you're not planning appropriately and all of a sudden get hit with a huge surprise repair bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that being said, I think all of these depends on where you are in life. There are a few constants in life. They say, it's not a one size fits all approach. So choosing the kind of house that makes sense for you, could a lot of it comes down to where your status is in life. And
yeah, again, it's part of a lifestyle choice. It's not all just dollars and cents and pros and cons. It's a lifestyle choice.
Yeah, 100%. Then even sort of getting back to that, you got the condo in the city, the single family, if you're starting out with a family. By the way, I'm big, broad brush strokes, but
yeah, exactly.
Multifamily, I think you very often, if you're looking to, we talked about house hacking in a previous episode.
Yep.
If you're looking to expand your portfolio quickly, if you want to get into real estate, you're kind of getting started and you want to get a leg up on that, getting a multifamily might not be a bad way to go. Get a 2 or a 3 family that sort of, again, if you've got a significant other, if you don't have one, so that doesn't have an issue with the neighbor upstairs and the calls at 1 a.m. for the leaky sink, it can be a good way to go that way as well.
Yeah. So you're right. It's the whole house hacking, where you can, in an ideal world, purchase a multifamily home, have rental income that is covering a significant part of the overall housing expense, so that your own individual housing expense is much lower. I don't know that it's really all that likely in the metro Boston area right now, but living for close to nothing, or or very little out of your pocket, or in some other markets maybe even be profitable, where the cost of the other unit's rent is covering the entire housing expense.
Not too many of those right now, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably looking back, 10, 15, 20 years.
I'd even say less. I'd say go back 5-6 years when things are slow. After that the great recession we're all talking about right now. But yeah, no, you're right. Certainly 10, 15 years, 100%. And then you had more of a hybrid that some would, some wouldn't, but certainly more affordable. Going back 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah. So, just a quick rundown here, friendly conversation about some of the pros and cons, some of the things that maybe you're aware of, maybe you haven't thought of. If you're looking at a single, a condo, or a multi, no real preference, not really pushing anyone in one direction or the other, saying one is great and the other is horrible. There are pros and cons. You can put together that list and draw that line down the middle of the page. But beyond that, I think on each one of them, we've talked about some of the stuff that you just can't quantify. What is the lifestyle choices that you have? Do you want to be in an urban area where you can walk to work or walk to the grocery store? Or do you want that, sort of that big backyard and privacy? Or do you want, to build a real estate portfolio and have income from other units to help you do that? So again, it's more than just the pros and cons you can list on the paper. I think a lot of it comes down to the lifestyle choices.
Yeah, I think if it came down to it, people ask me, you obviously been asked me. That's why we're having this conversation. What's condo versus single family versus our single family versus which single family and condo are put into one versus a multifamily. I think a lot of it's if again the broad strokes. I think if you're young, maybe single, and you're looking to meet people, you don't need the privacy, you're kind of leaning towards a condo. Then the next progression is a townhouse, which is also a condo, but it becomes more of the sort of little bit more privacy, less touching walls. And then, you know, you move to your single family. And as again, if you've got a young family, you're starting out, and or you go to the multifamily if you're still single and you want to sort of get a head start, or if you're a young couple and you haven't got kids yet, very often the multifamily is the way to go to kind of get you out of the gates. But you're moving progressively further out and a little bit.
Absolutely, and I've had the opportunity to work with clients, you know, throughout that progression from the first purchase. It's sort of moving along as their lives have changed, their real estate needs and housing needs have changed, and have helped them move through, you know, one stage to the next. So sometimes it is a progression, and it's, you know, talking about those lifestyle choices. It's not just what it is today. Sometimes you got to think, you know, a couple of moves ahead, and what is it going to look like in 5 years. Now, of course, current environment with the pandemic, who the hell knows what it's going to look like in 5 years. Difficult to say, but definitely things that you want to consider as you're trying to decide what is going to be the best fit for you when you're looking at what kind of property to purchase. So I think we're hitting pretty close to a half hour, maybe a little bit over that for today's broadcast. So what do you say, Declan? Let's wrap it up for today. So quick rundown on some of those pros and cons on each one of those property types. This has been another, I think, successful episode of the Wicked Awesome Report. I'm Patrick Whaley, your host, joined by Declan O'Toole from Select Real Estate as our co-host. Thanks for joining us, Declan.
Thanks, Patrick. And I'd say I certainly think it's successful because I don't know kids have interrupted me yet. So
yeah, no interruption. So let's don't jinx it. Let's wrap it up before we face an interruption. So want to thank everybody for tuning in. Give us a comment, a like, a share. Head over to the Wicked Awesome Report Facebook page. Drop a comment there. Give us a like, and you'll be notified next time we go live. So until the next episode of the Wicked Awesome Report, want to thank everybody for tuning in. Hope everybody stays well, and hope everybody stays awesome. Take care.